We're gonna hope that my camera doesn't fall over because my tripod's feeling a wee bit tippy today. Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to my channel. I'm a professional psychic activator, historical medium, and I also am a professional author. And I've been in this industry a really long time. And throughout my time in this industry, one thing that has not changed, a lot of things have changed, but one thing that has not changed has been the fact that with your spiritual awakening, there's always some elements of danger or of risk or of fear that come up. And so many people struggle with their spiritual awakening because of these perceived or real dangers or fears. So I figured we were going to talk about the dangers of your spiritual awakening, of which there are some. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but not only just bringing to light some of those dangers, but I'm also going to talk to you quite a bit about how to prevent those dangers or avoid those dangers or cope with those dangers, depending upon how they show up for you. So that's what we're doing today. Yeah, my ring light is bright this evening. Okay, before we dive into that though, I do just want to say thank you so much for being here. Welcome to my channel. If you could please subscribe, like, comment, hit the little alerty button so you know when I post. It's like the little bell symbol thingy. That would be incredible. I'm just getting this channel going. I have a lot of other presences on a lot of other social media platforms if you want to go check those out for more like quick videos, posts, that sort of thing. But this is my first time really diving into long form video, and your support means the world to me. On the note of support, I've got to say thank you to my patrons. So these are my intuitive initiate patrons, which means they are in the really heavily psychic mentorship level of my Patreon. So thank you so much to Alyssa, Carrie, Cheryl, Danny, and Sarah. Your guys' support means the world to me. I am so thankful you're here, as well as all of my other patrons. For those of you who don't know, I have a Patreon. It is really heavily focused on doing a lot of extra work with me. A lot of bonus material is in there, such as card pulls. There's a meditation that you get every month in one of the tiers. Everyone gets to vote on content, vote on YouTube videos. This one was voted on by my patrons. So if you want to check that out, I will link it down below, but I would love to have you in the Patreon in that capacity as well. And so far it's been a lot of fun, and it's a really cool way to build in community, which I just super appreciate. So there we go. That is all our housekeeping taken care of. Let's dive into some of the dangers of your spiritual awakening. Shifting back and forth through my notes. Okay. I do want to start out by saying having a spiritual awakening is not inherently dangerous. There's not something that immediately comes in where I'm like, oh, if you're not doing these 3 things, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be spiritually harmed or physically harmed, or you name it. I'm not saying that in the slightest. In fact, having a spiritual awakening often is an important part of you becoming a more true version of yourself, a more authentic version of you, a deeper connected version of you. And so in no way is this video meant to detract from any of that. However, something that I find very harmful in a lot of very new age spiritual communities is this belief that everything is love and life. It's total love and light. It's totally fine. Don't worry about anything, because that is also categorically false. There are some significant risks and dangers associated with activating your spiritual abilities, but they're probably not the ones that you're thinking of. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be dividing the dangers and how to avoid them into 2 different categories: tangible and untangible, or intangible. It's intangible. Words. Come on now. Tangible and intangible, well, that's what we're going to divide them into. The tangible stuff is the stuff that I'm talking about that has very physical earth life ramifications, very physical things that could physically harm you in this existence, in this space that we inhabit on this physical plane. The intangible, obviously, is more of a spiritual things that could harm you. Those are your big spookies. Those are the boogeyman energy, which obviously could trickle into harming you physically. But on that aspect, we're more talking about like spiritual harm, energy harm, that sort of thing. Now, with each of these categories, I'm going to tell you how to avoid those dangers or give you suggestions on how to avoid those dangers. But that's what we're breaking it up into, so that you can hopefully understand the 2 different kind of elements that come into play when we're talking about being safe during your spiritual awakening. So on that note, Let's talk about some of the main fears that come up when I am working with people who are at the start or even kind of, further along into their spiritual awakening. I will say you can have your own personal fears that can have nothing to do with any of these, but these are like the big ones that I have noticed in my career of doing this. And I think that they're important. And also I'm going to try to assuage most of them with a lot of the stuff we're talking about in today's video. But a lot of times it's our fear that's coming up as one of our biggest issues standing in the way of us spiritually awakening. And oftentimes those fears aren't actually rooted in things I would consider a big danger in your spiritual awakening. So if you have one of these fears, if it resonates with you, make sure you're staying till the end of the video so you get all of the information. But always, of course, you can ask questions in the comments and I'm happy to dive into that further. First off, being out of control, that is a big fear that people have when it comes to awakening their psychic abilities. You're going through a spiritual awakening. A lot of people don't like that power dynamic either of feeling like, okay, if there's all these things out there in the universe, if there's all these things out there in the universe helping us, what does that mean for me? What power dynamic does that insinuate? Do I owe all of these people energy? That is also in that like being out of control space. It's not just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so powerful, I'm gonna harm people. It's also the notion of like, well, now I'm out of control of my whole life. Now I'm out of control of even who's helping me or I'm just this little ant again. And that is not always awesome. So that is a big fear that comes up. There's the fear of accessing, tapping into, tuning into something that they shouldn't, or that would be reckless for them to tune into. Honestly, to be truthful with this particular fear, I blame horror movies and scary things like that, because this is honestly not something that comes up all of that often, unless some of the other factors we're going to talk about in today's video are present. But for the most part, you're not going to do this. You're not going to. It is just a limiting belief fear. You have guides protecting you. You have your own intuition protecting you. If you build those muscles up first, it's a lot safer for you to tune in and talk to things. Even if those beings are not necessarily nice, you're not going to call them in or even let them influence you. You're much more powerful than you give yourself credit for. More on that in a moment. Next is going to be social fears. Well, if I awaken these abilities, what does that mean for me with my family? What does that mean with me for my friends? What does that mean in my life with the people I interact with? What are people going to think of me if I'm tapping into all of this spiritual psychic stuff? I totally understand that. Being a psychic on the internet, especially a very visible psychic on the internet, obviously I have had those fears. I've dealt with them over and over and over again. And the truth of that is just at the end of the day, it's your own authenticity. If you'd like to show up in these ways, if you're being called to it, that is your choice. How people react to it is their choice. And again, more on that in a little bit. And then another one that is really, really common is, am I going to get these wrong? Am I going to get this wrong? Am I talking to someone that I think is my guide, but actually is not? If I get their message and I call this message in, am I going to understand and translate it wrong? Am I going to give people wrong information? Can I do this process wrong? Is this ritual going to be wrong? It's all of those fears. Those ones are kind of like the school-based fears, to be totally honest, where you think you're being graded on every assignment you ever have. And those fears are also ones where I'm like, I think your perspective is the thing that needs to shift on that one, because at the end of the day, especially for like guide work and things like that, the magical omnipotent beings that are there to help and support you, which are your spirit guides, it's their job to effectively communicate. And if you're not getting it right, that's on them. They should communicate better. Obviously, I know that's a very massively oversimplified version, but there we are. Now, of course, there is some dangers in getting some of the things wrong, but unless you're like really diving in without research or intention or spiritual hygiene or anything backing you up, that would be the only time where I think you should be really cautious about what rituals, etc. you do. Also, always trace your sources. Anyway, let's talk about some of the tangible dangers of spiritual awakening. The first very tangible danger, and this is not spoken about often enough in spiritual communities, is the effect that a spiritual awakening can have on your mental health. I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to say it twice because I think it's so important. Spirituality is not a substitution for mental health therapy or medication or whatever you need to support your health. It's not a substitution. Psychic people are not a substitute for a therapist. Spirituality personally or in a group is not a substitution for actual medical help that you may be needing. Those can work together. They're definitely not mutually exclusive, but that is not a substitute for it. And that is one of the actual real world dangers that come with the spiritual awakening. Many people will dive in immediately and start going into not just like spiritual psychosis, which is definitely a problem and a danger if you aren't mentally healthy enough to dive into spirituality, go really, really slow, get the support that you need, get the medication or the doctors or whatever you need to help support this journey. By all means, those resources are out there for you to get. But many people will dive into spirituality when they are not on a safe energetic ground, when they're not totally in a great mental health place to dive into that, and they go way too far, way too fast, which is again why I say having mental health support is super essential if you're going through your spiritual awakening. The other thing with that is people will get into spirituality and it will feel really, really good when you start to get into it. It definitely does. It feels amazing when you're starting to get into it. Why? Because you're realizing things for the first time. You're seeing things in a new light. Everything is new and exciting. And they'll go into that and be like, I'm cured of everything. Everything is perfect and wonderful. And they don't actually account for the fact that that is just your introductory period. There will be ups, there will be downs, there will be flows. Some stuff will feel magical all the time, and some stuff will feel magical sometimes, and some stuff will be magical for a minute and then not magical the next, and it'll change by the day. And that is a big reason why I never ever suggest that you just go, oh, I don't need therapy anymore, or I'm cured of all these things, because that is not a healthy, real world, actual life approach to it, which we do still have to live in. We still have to exist in this 3D reality, and you want to make sure you're very fully supported. All of these things work together. Spirituality works with mental health, works with working with psychics or other people that are spiritual, works with your spirit guides. Like all of this stuff works together to help you stay healthy and well. It is not a one, I only need this, I can get rid of this. I only need this, I can get rid of this. That is inherently out of balance and will harm you. Balance is so incredibly key to having a powerful and effective spiritual awakening that is not harmful for you or dangerous for you, but is actually magical and full of benefits. But we're still living a physical human experience. Like, I can still touch stuff. We still have to live here, and we're still living in a society that we can't change at the drop of a hat, that we can't shift on a dime. We're still living in family dynamics and friendship dynamics and work dynamics. You might be working in a corporate job and be like, oh, cool. Now I'm doing a spiritual awakening, but I'm working this corporate job. Are those things opposed? And maybe you find that they are and you're moving on, but you're still existing in this human space. That is a huge danger, especially in the mental health tangible aspect, because people kind of can forget that sometimes when you're really diving into a spiritual awakening. People will pull away from physical existence because they're like, it's a matrix, it doesn't matter, which it does matter because you're here, you're having it. The thoughts you have, you can't grab and hold and touch, but that doesn't mean they matter any less than the stuff you can grab and hold and touch. It's the same concept. They're both one and the same. So having balance is so incredibly, incredibly important in order to keep your mental health good, in order to keep your spiritual awakening good, in order to keep everything aligned. On that note too, a next point I want to make on this, it's okay to take breaks. It is 100% okay to take breaks from spirituality for a while and come back, or to pause on certain things you're learning and revisit them later, or go towards the things that feel fun today. And if tomorrow those things don't feel fun, jump to a different thing that kind of feels fun and circle back around as it goes. That's the thing with the spiritual awakenings, and I've said this a bunch, is there's not a lot of rules, but if you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't need to add more. Like if you're feeling like, okay, that's enough slices, you don't need to add more. You don't need to. It is not this need to know everything about everything all at once. That's where people get into a slippery slope with mental health stuff. Also, if you do take a break and come back to it, it's not like you lose momentum. That's a myth. You can come right back into it, pick up the pieces, keep on going. You're going to keep your same trajectory, even if you pause just for a little while. The other thing, especially to mention with mental health stuff, and I think this is especially important to mention in this space, because there are so many new age spiritual places out there that don't always have the best intention. Trust your gut. Please trust your gut during your spiritual awakening. If someone rubs you the wrong way, if you are watching a spiritual creator and all of a sudden they start talking about things that don't feel aligned with you, you do not have to keep absorbing that content. You do not need to keep diving into them just because you liked them before. You don't have to. And there are a lot of predatory people out there, especially in the spiritual community, which is an actual tangible danger to your spiritual awakening, because people will definitely try to take advantage of your spiritual awakening and use it for their own benefit or use it to manipulate you, those types of things. And that is just kind of like a normal human thing, is to always trust your gut and be aware. Especially when it comes to spirituality, like figuring out if something is in alignment for you, if someone's trying to sell you super hard on something, if someone's pushing you to do something that you're super uncomfortable with doing or not ready to try. that would be the time where I would check in with yourself and be like, is this, to be in this space, does it still align with me? Not like spirituality as a whole, but maybe following this creator stuff isn't super good. Or maybe I really don't like what this person is saying. Or like this, I was thinking about doing this class, but then this person started really pushing me into it. And this feels weird. I don't know if I like that. Those are things to really keep in mind. I wish there wasn't a ton of predatory people in this community. Unfortunately, there's so many. And that's a tangible danger. That's just a real living on this planet being a human danger. What I will also say is since basically 2019, spirituality has been on the rise and people are thinking it's very, very trendy. And though it is, and it's amazing, and I'm so honored to exist in this time where I can be my psychic, magical, weird self and share it all with you and it's helpful and beneficial. Like, I love that. And I'm so honored. Even 10 years ago, it definitely was not like this. But because it's something that's trendy, there's a lot of people trying to hop on the bandwagon who might not be ready to do so yet. That might have only started playing with this over the last year or two and are now trying to teach or now trying to get you into stuff. And it just make sure it resonates with you. Like, I'm not saying those people are bad or that you shouldn't do that or anything like that, but I am just saying it's important to actually have the experience to back up what you're saying. It's important that you test things out. It's important you try stuff on your own. So don't just fall down the spiritual rabbit hole of somebody in particular. Also, and I think about this one literally every time I post content, one person, even if they've helped you so much on your psychic or spiritual or awakening journey, should not be the core root of that awakening journey. At the end of the day, they are their own person on their own journey. So that is how cults happen. That's how cults happen right there. So don't ever join it to that extent, because that makes your spirituality no longer an individual experience. It becomes an organized religion experience, sort of, which if that's your goal, awesome. Enjoy, embrace organized religion. But spirituality is supposed to be a personal thing. So if you have someone sitting there saying, you should do this, you're not allowed to do that, that kinds of thing, big pause button. Big pause button on that. Another real world danger that I just want to touch on as well, really quick before we move into some of the intangible dangers, is consent. Spiritual consent is a thing. You need to have spiritual consent before people work on your energy, meaning you need to give them consent to do so. A real world danger in your spiritual awakening is, especially in this day and age of absorbing a lot of content from people, people will try to work on your energy without your consent often. And that is not cool. It's not cool. It's the same way with your physical body. You need spiritual consent, like genuinely. And this can be for your spirit guides too. Like, they don't get to, like, if you don't want them to bug you right now, you can tell them to not bug you right now, which I'll talk on more in the intangible fears a little bit. But if someone wants to work on your energy, you need to give them consent. Make sure that it's aligned with you before you let them do so. Anyone who says, oh, it's okay, I just sent you some Reiki. No offense to Reiki out there. I've done Reiki classes. I understand it pretty deeply. That's not cool. Don't just send people stuff without their consent. That is not all right. It's not. You can send energy to people. That's fine. It's their choice whether or not they absorb it. But performing energy work on a person, which are two different things, sending energy to a person is your energy going outward, right? And if they want to accept it or if they're open to accepting it, they can do so. Working on someone's energy is going into their energy and manipulating and working on stuff that you need consent for. And that way, that you should make sure you give consent for as well. That should not be something that people can just do to your energy space. That one is more real world just because I think it really involves people. So it is a little bit more of a tangible experience. It is also totally fine in working with people, and if you've got friends that are also doing the spiritual awakening, anything like that, talk about consent, talk about spiritual consent, bring it up, establish boundaries. Having spiritual boundaries is totally okay. If your friend is practicing mediumship and wants to practice mediumship, but you don't want to talk to your grandfather because he was really fucking mean to you and you have no desire to hear from him, say that. Say, I don't care if he comes through. I'm unwilling to hear that. Or if you're in a reading, I don't want to hear that. That's totally fine. Having those consents, having those boundaries, that is a really important thing. And that's that tangible real world danger, right? Of being like, okay, I need to actually have these conversations to keep myself safe. Again, kind of mental health wise, but also spiritually as well. So those are some of the tangible, physical, real world dangers that come in with a spiritual awakening and how to combat some of those. I do just want to say on all of these, they're all things that you can handle. They're all things that you can overcome. They're all things that you can work on, that you can have people help you with. All of those things, they are not insurmountable dangers. They are just dangers that you need to be aware of so that you don't have to fall into them. That's all. Let's dive into the spooky stuff. Let's talk about your intangible dangers, your intangible risks. Like I said, when I'm talking about intangible dangers or about the spooky stuff, I really am talking about things that could spiritually harm you and how to prevent those. I'm not going to go through like a list of beings that exist out there in the universe or something like that that could come in and harm you. Mostly I'm going to talk about ways to avoid intangible harm during your spiritual awakening and kind of give examples attached to that. So the first of which is you want to make sure you have a very solid spiritual hygiene routine in place before you're doing any sort of spiritual work. And what I mean by doing spiritual work is, I mean, whether it's you're going to do a meditation or even sometimes before you go to bed, if you're a very avid dreamer, or if you're going to do a ritual or even a card pull, you want to make sure that you have a very solid, well-used practice of spiritual hygiene in place for that, because that keeps your energy field your energy field. What is spiritual hygiene? I can do a whole video on a whole bunch of techniques. I'm even debating doing a video on the best ways of clearing your energy for each perception style. So if you want that, let me know. But spiritual hygiene is a clearing your energy, grounding your energy, shielding your energy, and occasionally calling your energy back process. A process of keeping your energy field your sacred space so that you can use it for your benefit and feel safe while doing any sort of spiritual work. It firms up your walls, it connects you to yourself, connects you to the earth, connects you to your guides, and makes you as solid and powerful as possible so that you can remain safe. It also will help you to understand your own energetic space, which is like a super duper important thing as well. The next thing I want to mention is you want to make sure that you are setting clear intentions when you're doing spiritual work. A lot of times when people run into the spooky stuff, they've just been like, I don't know, I'm going to astral project. Let's see how it goes. And that is not particularly safe because you're not setting clear intentions. You haven't done spiritual routine. You haven't plotted things out. You haven't said like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. You need to be in the driver's seat. If you're handing over the reins to whatever, you're going to get a whole different experience. And sometimes that experience comes with a very high level of inherent risk, especially if you're doing things like ghost hunting or talking to anything paranormal, anything like that. You want to have intentions. You want to be standing on solid ground. You want to make sure your energy is safe and secure with your spiritual hygiene. And that is what's going to keep you protected and keep you safe throughout that entire experience. Also, you want to make sure your physical space is secure so that you feel secure. Whether that is going through and activating different parts of your house, whether you feel like you need to make sure your house is secure with like window locks and things like that nature, that's also totally fine. But whatever it is, you want to make sure that you are actually in a secure space when doing spiritual stuff to the best of your abilities. Obviously, sometimes you're going to be out and about, you're going to tune in. That's totally fine, but you want to make sure that you're tuning in places where you feel secure to the best of your ability, especially if you're doing things like deeply meditating, things like that. You can't be spiritual if you're in a place of fight or flight. It's very hard to grow and spiritually awaken in that way. Oftentimes it's the start of it, but it's definitely not the blossoming of it, if that makes sense in those situations. So you want to make sure you're finding safety where you can, because that's also going to clear your space of any negative entities or psychic attack or anything like that that could be coming into your zone, is because you're keeping that space safe and secure. It's also a matter of like, okay, do you sing oftentimes to move energy around? Do you need to move your furniture to make the energy feel more comfortable? Really tuning into your space is going to help you stay safe and protected as well. Again, from things like negative entities, stuck energy, sickness, even things like that can come into your space. That's actually more important than we give a lot of credit for. It's also going to help you feel safe to be more spiritual, which is going to help you be on more solid footing. Now, with all of this, big point here. Remember that you are more powerful than anything you're going to encounter spiritually on this realm. You are more scary than any spooky things in here. And why is that? It's because you're in a physical body. You're having a full embodied life here right now. You're not fighting to have the energy to show up here barely. Nothing here on this realm and in this plane is at their like full max potential or whatever. Even if you come across things that are spooky or scary, you're stronger than them. You can block them out. You can shove them away. You have the power. If you want something to go away and leave you alone, you have your guides to support you. You can ask them. You have a whole team there. I did do another video about that just last week. So if you want to look it up, I'll put a little thingy here so you can click on it somewhere around here. But you have your guides supporting you. They will help remove things you don't want from your space. You're strong. You have your higher self supporting you. That can help. But just your energy, your human based energy can just bam, push things out of your space as well. So you are a lot stronger than the ghost hunting shows and the scary movies would like you to believe that you are spiritually. Other thing on this, just to note, is a lot of times people are scared because little them was scared. Not because adult them was scared. Sometimes you'll hear your child, your inner child's fear rise up when it comes to diving into spiritual stuff. And that's where you want to do inner child healing or work or do some block releasing, something in that capacity. But just a little note on that one. Another intangible thing that you really want to be aware of, do not ever let any entity into your physical energy space. Do not let anything into your space, your physical energy, even your guides. Like, they can give you a hug, just like people can give you a hug, but you're not putting them in your body. As a weird example, you're not putting them in your body, right? When they hug you, that is the most that you can let your guides do. Don't absorb them into your energy space. That's not what we're going to. Occasionally we can make pockets where they can come in if you're doing an activation or something, but that has very held parameters and is kind of a whole other story. But don't ever invite any ghosts or anything into your energy space. Please don't. That is where we get into not good zone. Now, occasionally we'll have fallens or energy attachments, those sorts of things. Those can be removed. It is okay. If you've ever had one, you know, it can be sometimes a very yucky experience. Those you can remove yourself if you identify them. You can ask someone for help to remove those. I do a lot of that removal work for clients. That is not super duper duper common though. So do keep that in mind. Chances are good you don't have a spiritual attachment, but if you do, you can still get rid of that. That's still not even in your energy space. Your energy space is sacred. It is yours. Don't ever invite another entity into it. It's your space. You get to have that. You definitely get to have that. Inviting entities into your space, especially at the start of your spiritual awakening, might seem like a good idea. It's not. Don't. Things that exist out there can lie, just like people can. Okay? Cool. Don't do that. One other thing when it comes to intangible stuff, and this is a little bit of a crossover bullet point, I would say, is when you're starting, especially your psychic ability awakening journey, give yourself an on and off switch, or give yourself working hours, or give yourself, for me, I have rooms in my mind, which I will open and close, like literally with doors based on what I want to channel, who I want to talk to, when I'm available for that. My rules, even for my guides, is like at nighttime when I'm falling asleep, unless it's a brilliant idea, like an actually brilliant idea, or it's an emergency, I'm asleep now. You can work with me in my dreams, but you're going to let me fall asleep. You're not going to sit there and badger me about stuff. Like, you're going to let me fall asleep. If I'm focusing, if I'm at a kid's performance or something where I need to be present with my family, you're going to leave me alone now because I'm being present with my family. Come up with those for yourself. You can literally give yourself an on-off switch. I've done more detailed videos about that on my TikTok, but like on-off switch, you can actually give yourself as well. Whatever it is, you want to have some sort of process that shuts your abilities down when you're done using them and opens them up when you want to use them again. It's really, really important. It's the way you keep yourself safe. It's the way you keep yourself not burnt out spiritually, energetically, emotionally, mentally, all of those things. So come up with some sort of system for yourself. And if you want more information on those systems, maybe I'll do a video on it or something. Just let me know in the comments below. 2 final reminders before I sign off on this video. Just because you have spiritual abilities, you can tune into people's past loved ones or whatever the heck they are, doesn't mean you have to. This is not a knowing game. That is a big slippery slope to fall down, especially when you're just starting out. This is not an owing situation. Just because you can do something does not mean that you have to do something. And even if you have that ability and you save that ability just for yourself and use it just for yourself, perfectly fine. If you want to share it with people, if you want to expand beyond just yourself, you can do that too, but it's not a requirement just because you have magic that you have to use it for the benefit of others. The other thing I want to say, when in doubt with something, if you're afraid of something or something's coming up, follow your fun. Your fun is where this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be a joyful experience, not without its challenges. I'm not saying go like shine everything and make it all sparkly and ignore the shadow sides at all. But at the end of the day, you should still be motivated because this is driving for you. You don't need to know everything about all at once. Follow the fun. Everything. You don't need to know everything about everything. There we go. All at once. Follow the fun and you'll definitely get there. Cool. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was helpful for you. This is something I really wish I would have been able to see during my spiritual awakening, which is what I was focusing on when I was writing the script for this. So I really hope this is beneficial. Again, please, I would love it if you could subscribe, hit the little notification bell, like, comment, share, do all of the things. It helps it out so much here, and so that I can reach more people and we can, you know, impact more of the world, have more fun, and be more magical. And always remember, you are magical as fuck. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.